We like to tell people that they have potential. That's another thing I have a problem with. Potential is associated with a title. Purpose is something eternal, and like someone can't take your purpose away from you. They can't.
Authentic Talks is all about authentic conversations. This show is all about growth, love, respect, success, mind, body, and spirit. If you're looking to grow and become your authentic self, then this is the podcast for you. And I am your host, Shantae. Welcome to the show. Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Authentic Talks. I'm really excited about this week's guest. I had the pleasure of sitting down and talking with the CEO and founder of JUNURI. And JUNURI equips students and professionals with tools and resources, you guys, to help them to be successful in different areas of their lives. She is also the author of Sharing My Lens, the college experience, as well as a life coach, a teacher, and she's also the co-founder and chief business development of another company as well that she's going to share with everyone listening in. She also talks about what Creole is. Is it a real language or not? You guys stay tuned. You don't want to miss this show. Hi, Juliette. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you here because there's so much that we're going to talk about today. But can I have you introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. My name, once again, is Juliette Nelson. I am a strategic account management professional per day, which, encompasses so many different titles. And I'm also an entrepreneur at night. I am the CEO and founder of JUNURI. That is a company that facilitates academic and professional development in students and professionals. We have a range of services ranging from, tutoring and coaching to proofreading and editing on academic papers to resume building and job prep, so on and so forth. We also have a publishing branch as part of the company where we do, book editing and book coaching as well to empower people to have a voice and share that voice with others. I am also the co-founder and chief business development officer of Vwazen, which is a Haitian Creole language learning management platform. And we basically have the goal and the mission of increasing more of an awareness and appreciation for the Haitian Creole language. Outside of that, I am a published author. My book is Sharing My Lens, the college experience, and it shares some of the gems that I wish I had going into college as well as grad school. So thank you so much for having me.
Wow. Welcome to the show. That's a huge resume. I love it, though. I want to back up a little bit. I was going to go directly into talking about your book and the college experience.
Yes.
But Vwazen?
Yeah, so it's Creole for, and I believe French as well, for neighbor.
I was born in a state where Creole was a language that was spoken.
Yeah. So Creole, it is a language. So Creole is Haitian Creole. Well, Creole in general. If we go back in history, Creole was created as a way to facilitate communication between the slave masters and the slaves. So it's almost like a meet in the middle. So it's a combination of African dialect, French, Spanish, Portuguese, a mix of different Latin languages, along with the African dialect. And that's how you have a Creole. Now, in Haiti, Creole has been made as an official language. It's officially recognized. There's also an academy for Haitian Creole, so they dictate the rules and the structure of the language just as they have for other languages. I might be wrong. I believe it could be St. Lucia, but I could be very, very wrong. I know I'm absolutely wrong. That also has an official Creole language. The challenge is that when people think of Creole, they think of patois. When they refer to Creole, they refer to it as almost like a patois. Mm-hmm. Patois is a broken English.
Right.
Then that has, it's beautiful within of itself. It has some kind of structure to it as well. But from what I understand in, talking and connecting with linguists, the moment that the English, for example, becomes broken or a slang, that's when it becomes a patois. And when it starts to form a language within itself, that's when it becomes Creole. So that's kind of the progression of the language. But, my business partner and I, we saw a need, because people continuously refer to Haitian Creole as broken French, and it's not. It has its own structure. It has its own rules. There's a lot of influence from French, but there is also influence from Spanish. There's also influence from the motherland, from Africa. So we found also that there are very limited resources. Even in Haiti, there are not many official dictionaries in Creole, like you see the Merriam-Webster here. They don't have as many of those resources. And even for Haitian Creole learners, we found that everybody teaches Creole their own way. And so our goal was to really give a comprehensive understanding of the language, just like there is for Spanish, just like there is for French, just like there is for English and other languages. So
yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I was a teacher in South Korea for about a year. And I found that there's this stigma regarding being a foreign language speaker, or having an accent, or not speaking as what people would call the status quo, right? And I noticed that sometimes my students always said that, they always associated them being able to speak English, European English, I guess you could say, being able to speak it so without an accent, they would connect that with their intelligence. And I think what happens, like even in your experience, where you're targeted just because of how you speak, or even the language you speak, them trying to put you in a class, as a foreign language speaker, what happens is, like, there's just this horrible assumption that if I don't speak English perfectly, then I'm not that smart.
Yes, I agree.
And that really needs to change, because the reality is the fact that I have an accent, it means that I'm able to communicate in several languages, and I'm able to communicate and connect with so many different people compared to those who only know or speak one language.
That's so true. You're helping to empower people, and you had mentioned like some different things that you're doing.
Our slogan, it's empowering you to meet the highest standard of your purpose. I'm a very purpose-driven individual. I believe there's a reason for everything. With kids, and this is something I always share, when we're kids, they always tell us what we want to be when we grow up. And if people really asked us what we wanted to do, I think we would be able to achieve our purpose and understand our callings in life, and be a little more impactful, right? When you tell a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an astronaut. And, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, and that's cool. But what happens is they become so attached to the title that when they get to college, and, we'll talk about that in the book, but when they get to college, they are so attached to this title that if the title doesn't work out, because they took a major in order to achieve that title, the title doesn't work out, then they throw the whole dream away, because they didn't understand their purpose. If you ask a kid what they want to do and they want to help people, then that's where you can work with them to become a doctor, or maybe a dietitian, or maybe a fitness instructor, right? I worked with a student earlier today, and I said, what do you want to do when you grow up? To see what he would give me. And he said, I want to play Fortnite. Now,
but yeah, that's pretty deep though.
Deep. And I said, you want to play Fortnite? He said, yeah. I said, is there anything else you want to do? He goes, I want to play Fortnite. I said, okay, so what do you like about it? And so in talking to him, I said, would you be interested in making games like Fortnite so their kids can play? And he said, yeah. I said, what about like putting a website together? He said, yeah. And I love robots. And that's where you see that maybe his purpose is to go into something related to STEM. And so maybe he might go into college, he might look at a couple of positions, and maybe it might be data scientist, maybe it might be engineer. But by the time he's done, he's like, you know what? I don't necessarily want to be an engineer. Maybe I want to be a software developer. And he creates a website, and he uses codes and all that stuff that, he applies those engineering skills differently. So all to say, with JUNURI, my goal is to really help people in achieving their purpose, and then facilitating those skills and giving them the tools and resources so that they can be successful in achieving their purpose. You know, we like to tell people that they have potential. That's another thing I have a problem with. Potential is associated with a title. Purpose is something eternal, and like someone can't take your purpose away from you. They can't. You know, the potential, and that's another thing. That's why they tell you don't date people for their potential, don't make friends for potential, because people don't always achieve their potential. Potential is a man-made thing. It's a man-made standard versus purpose, where human beings can't determine your purpose. Your purpose, that's just what you're meant on earth to do, right? So we do offer services. You know, I do tutoring, but my services are more from a coaching perspective, a teaching and educating a coaching perspective. So with my students, they get an individualized learning plan. I look at what their opportunities for growth are, and I really work to help them cultivate their skills, you know, and dig into their interests. You know, if I find that they have opportunities for growth or further development in certain areas, I will work with them on those areas. And then, you know, for students, you know, at the college and grad school level, for some, it's you know, a recurring situation where the coaching goes on a recurring basis. And for others, it's just a one-time thing where they have a report, they have a paper, they have a presentation that they need me for. And so I would sit and I would work with them. But even based on what they submit to me, for example, a 2-3 page paper, I'm also identifying what the areas for growth are. And that's where I'm empowering them, because I'm not only just making some edits to their paper, but I'm working with them to change their level of thinking, right? How do we think at a higher level? How do we apply our critical thinking or our strategic thinking? How do we make sure that we're a better researcher or a better writer? Or how do we make sure that our skills and citations and so on and so forth can improve in our academic writing? And so when they finish working with me, they've now gained another skill, or they have somewhat of an action item of a skill that they need to develop. So yes, they can come to me to edit a paper for them, but at least they have a little bit more power over their writing experience. And same thing for resume building. You know, I approach my clients and they understand that they're not robots. And so their resumes should not reflect that a robot is on paper. You know, talk about the value you provide. Why are you important? For example, making copies. What does you making copies do for the company? Because anybody can make copies, right? Resume building and job preparation. I work with my clients to really show how they provide value as human beings and as purposeful human beings at that, not just, you know, another statistic or another, just, you know, a robot. And that's JUNURI. And even for the book writing, we work with our clients to really tell their story in the most captivating and engaging and concise way as well, whatever story they want to tell. You know, you don't just, and I guess that's for me, we don't just take clients who just want to publish something and they need another stream of income, but what is going to make your reader pick up the book? What are you trying to tell them? What journey are you taking them on? And so we coach them through the book writing process. And once again, empowering them to be in control of their story, but to ensure that they can captivate their readers and their audience as they tell their story.
Are you guys reading their story and then going back and saying you need to make these corrections in that type of way, or just helping to build the foundation?
It depends on the client. So, you know, if it's a client who's already written, and that's mostly what we get, some clients who've already written their books, they have somewhat of a skeleton, and we read them, we make corrections, we do like a first iteration of corrections, and then we have a session with them where we go through, you know, we provide high level feedback, in-depth feedback on the content of their story. So we're identifying their voice, we're identifying their message, we're identifying the story they want to tell. And then we're going back and saying, okay, here are our suggestions as to how you would want your story to flow or your book to flow, and so on and so forth. So.
Now, normally I would ask, what inspired you to write your book? But you just really, everything that you've talked about encompasses like why you wrote the book. It's called Sharing My Lens, The College Experience. And with us going into, we're in summer right now, and there's a lot of young people and just of all ages that are like ready to go back to college, getting ready to start their first year, getting ready to go into maybe their second or third year. Let's talk to the people who have never been to college and talk about your experience and all of that as well. But I want to ask you, Sharing My Lens, The College Experience, who is that book for?
Oh, wow. So I have like, it's like levels of audiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
My primary audience is high school students. I'll give more insight into that after. So my primary audience is high school students. My secondary audience is college and grad school students. My tertiary audience is everyone that supports those students. Mm-hmm. So everyone that coaches them, advises them, supports them, so on and so forth. Outside of that, you know, it's an audience of people who've been through the process, who've gone through college, graduated already, and just someone who wants, you know, a level of self-development as well, because it does speak to you as a person as well. The specific inspiration for me writing the book, to be transparent, I remember going through a rough patch a couple of years ago, and I remember a person from my church praying over me and said, God is telling me that you need to write. And I remember that day as if it happened yesterday. And I think I'm telling this story for the first time. God is telling me that you need to write. And I'm crying and I'm a mess and I'm having a bad day. And I heard that person's words and I didn't know what to do with them. So I just kind of just left it there. Right. And I love to write. I absolutely love to write. But of course, you know, it was just my bad day and to not really want to write. Sometime after that, someone who had their own publishing company, they came to me offering me the opportunity to publish a memoir. They said that they wanted to publish my memoir and they wanted to tell my story and so on and so forth. And this was someone who didn't even know me. So it was kind of like someone who I guess got an inkling that I would have a good story to tell, I guess. And I said, okay, but at that time, it was just not the right time for me at that moment. And I told them, give me some time. Now, as maybe months to almost a year passed, I said, I need to pick up the phone and call this person again. I did contact them, to see what terms may have changed and so on and so forth. And as I'm going through that process, I remember hearing a voice that was like, it's not your time to write this book. And that's not going to be the person to tell your story. I'm like, okay. It's almost like you got your bags and you're ready to just head out the door. And then maybe your parents are just like, freeze, because there's something that you forgot. And so you slowly place everything back down.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the moment that I had. And I believe this was last year when I kind of got that revelation. And I really played around with it. I'm like, okay, so it's not my time to even share my story. And that's not the person who's supposed to share my story. So maybe they were just there to inspire the idea of a book needing to be published. And, I just kept playing around with it. And I could never find some level of inspiration. I knew that a memoir, an in-depth memoir, was something I knew I wasn't going to be ready to share because I know the story isn't complete yet. It approached like the fall time. My birthday is in November, so it's approaching that time. And, I was working on different projects for book editing and book coaching and so on and so forth. And it was at that moment where it's like, no, Juliette, you're going to start your own publishing company. And you're going to start it by publishing a book. And so in having a conversation with one of my mentees who, graduated from college, we're having this talk and we're both just reflecting on all the stuff that we wish we knew going into college. And I took college classes in high school. So I understood the feeling of having to learn to write and to think at a college level. And then when it came to state tests, having to go back to thinking at a very simple level. And going into college and realize how there were so many things I wasn't prepared for and that high school didn't prepare me for. And so fast forward, having this conversation with one of my mentees, that's when the light bulb went off in my head. Like, this is it. This is what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to share my lens. I'm going to share my passion, my purpose, my joy, my failure, all of it. And so I put it in a book, and I organized it in 3 parts. The first part, it focuses on knowing yourself and just gaining a level of self-awareness so you actually understand what you're in college for. And the second part is getting those skills that provide value to your college experience. So time management, writing, reading, public speaking, finances, and all of that. And then the last part is your network, how you build your portfolio, how you represent your brand, and also how you promote that brand to other people. Yeah, there you have it.
Wow, that's good stuff. What do you think are the top 2 things that people should know before entering college?
Number 1, know yourself.
Okay.
Know yourself and know how to manage yourself. Boom. Top 2 things.
Right on.
Yeah.
And so what was your experience like when you went in there? Did you find yourself having trouble with how to fit in, or was it more academically? Like what was the experience like on day 1 for you?
Honestly, I'm a little introverted. So I was never really one of those kids that cared to make friends in school and to be the popular kid. I was just trying to get my education and go home, right?
Yeah.
It's to the point that, I didn't even sleep on campus. I commuted to school. My first days, I just got homework. I got my assignments. I think that was my first thought. Cause when you're in high school, the teacher that would dare to give you homework on the first day of class, oh my gosh, they're the worst. You know what I mean?
It sets the tone. Oh my goodness, what can we expect as we move
whole
through the year?
Right? And I remember those days where, like, first day of school, I'm looking at the teacher cross-eyed. You really about to give us homework? You're gonna make us write 2 sentences about our favorite color and what we want to learn from this class for homework? But in college, I think maybe that was my first impression, where I got homework and I'm like, y'all gave me a whole syllabus and assignments. We have a paper due next week. Whoa. That was probably my first reaction. But also, I think one of the biggest challenges, I was transitioning to college classes in high school to college classes in college. And it's also very different. And so I think, I would say in my first semester, I struggled with transitioning and finding that balance or streamlining or whatever, like moving from thinking as a college student in high school to thinking as a college student in college. I will tell you that even though I made it, my first semester I did fail a class because it was just different. The structure was different. The workload was different. In college, you got to read that textbook all by yourself and hope that your teacher is not one of those professors that gives you a test and goes line for line, does fill in the blanks with exact word for word stuff from the book itself. But yeah, it was just this challenge of transitioning. I will also say that the teachers were not teaching according to my learning style in college. So my professors were more lecturers. Some of them had slides that they never used. They just put it on the board, and you didn't really know what they were referring to because they just spent the whole class talking and talking and talking, assuming that you knew all the material.
Wow.
Which is also, it's almost like a culture shock because you come from a high school culture, and that's all of us, where the teachers are there to teach you. The professor is there to kind of review what you were expected to read on your own. That was hard for me, where they were teaching me in a certain way, and I was struggling to find how I was going to work that into my learning journey. Granted, I made it, and I did pretty well in undergrad, but it wasn't until I got to grad school that a professor stood in front of the class and said, let's talk about your learning styles, that I realized, wait. There's a way for me to manage myself throughout my higher education experience. And so that's where I kind of learned what my learning style was and how I can manage it even when the professor is feeding me something that's different. So all to say, college was more like a culture shock almost, where I was coming from one college experience and entering another that I was completely unprepared for.
And what are the different learning styles?
So I like to go by the VARC model. V is visual. Those are your visual learners. So these are the learners that they need charts, graphs, they need pictures, they need something to envision what they're supposed to do. These are also your learners that you show them before you expect them to implement. Then you have A, which is auditory. Those are your listeners. So, they can hear something and they're more than likely to retain it. Then you have R. Those are your reading and writing learners. These are the people that need to read and they need to write down things so that they can retain the information they're being fed. Lastly is kinesthetic, and they also call that tactile. That means that those people are very hands-on. And I'll give you an example to apply the 4 styles. Someone asks you for directions, right? I ask you for directions. Now, if I were a visual learner, I would need you to pull out a map, pull out a picture, something, and show me point. This is where we are. This is where you're going to go. Then you're going to make a right here, and so on and so forth. So I have a visual. An auditory learner, you can just tell me, hey, go to the 3rd light, make a right, then go to the stoplight, make a left, and I'm good. Reading and writing, I would actually need to maybe go on MapQuest. Well, I know they had that back in the day, or Google Maps now. And, I would need to read those instructions ahead of time and maybe write them down so that I'm retaining them. And then your kinesthetic or your tactile learners, those are the ones where if I asked you for direction, you would actually say, okay, just follow me, I'll take you. So there you go.
Right on. I'm definitely a little bit of all of them. If I'm in class, I need to have that visual up there. I'm not always going to look at it, but I do like to hear you talk. Mm-hmm. And I love to write. I love writing notes. And if you tell me something that I'm supposed to learn, if I don't write it down, it's not going to stick with me. So I have to take notes. And I was really good at taking notes. If I'm on a new job and they're training me on something, they can have the material in front of me where it says all of that. But guess what I do? I actually rewrite it out in my own way. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing with behind the psychology of it. With students, the point of preferred, so we call it the preferred learning style. So there's one of those learning styles that you lean toward the most. So for myself, I am mostly a visual person. I need charts and graphs and pictures. I know, like, my team, I tell them, like, if I'm asking you for a report or a plan or whatever, don't give me a 3,000 page paper, because I might go through 2 of them and then I'm going to look up at you and say, okay, what are you trying to tell me? But if you show me charts and graphs and big numbers and pictures and so on and so forth and quick bullets, it'll retain my attention. And if you speak to that, it'll retain my attention. However, that does not mean that reading and writing isn't important for me. It doesn't mean that, the tactile function doesn't work. So for the most part, we'll lean more toward one, and the others will somehow come into play in some way or another.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it is important for people to understand their learning styles, because Absolutely. I've been in trainings and even in school where there's people just sitting there, and when someone's talking, they say, hey, I can remember everything. I'm like, that's good for you. I realized that note taking is a skill, because not everyone is able to do that. They don't know what are the important points that I need to write down for some reason. And so, that's also a skill that I think people need to learn in early years, like in middle school and maybe throughout high school.
Elementary school. I know my students, most of them, they know their learning style, And so, for example, if I have one that is hands-on or visual, for example, and I'm telling them, okay, for homework, I want you to do A, B, C, D, E. You're going to look at page this, that, and third. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. If I notice they're staring, my next question will be, what's your learning style? Are you auditory? They say no. I'm visual and I'm hands-on. Okay, did I provide you with a visual or a PowerPoint of what the homework is going to be so that you can write it down? No. Okay, but you're hands-on. Okay, so what are you going to do? And they know to pick up their pencil and that's their hands-on to write down what they heard me say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about teaching kids how to also manage their own learning, because teachers are awesome, but teachers will also teach according to their preferred teaching style.
That is so true.
Yeah, and that doesn't make them bad. It just makes us human. The way teachers when people have learning styles, teachers also have preferred teaching styles. And especially with teachers who are in a classroom of like 30 kids, 25, 30 kids, you can't make everyone happy, but children should also understand to an extent that, for example, if they're hands-on and there's a math problem they don't understand, they need to go home, go on YouTube or go on Google, and find a program that that walks them through the process and helps them apply what they learned in school. So, yeah.
So if a parent was listening to this and they had like a kid that was like maybe in the second or third grade, they could reach out to you for you to help them to identify what their learning style is.
Yeah. So I work with students from the elementary to the grad school level, or even PhD level at this point.
That's nice. And how would you do that? Because now, with COVID-19, I love the fact that you're able to do Zoom and you can see each other. You're able to just you can get so much done now where people didn't really understand the full capacity of it before. Is that what you do with the, second grader or the third grader?
Yes. So and I'm glad you asked that question, because that was one of the biggest hurdles, having, not even second, but maybe second to fifth grade, and really engaging them online. And it worked. You see them in person, but for them, I would have to either make sure they have some kind of a workbook or something to engage them, or I would have images and PowerPoints and slides. And it, of course, depends on their grade level. So given COVID-19 and the social distancing and so on and so forth, I have students across the country, more within my state, but some that are across the country. And some of my clients are across the country. So, we go on Zoom, we go on Google Meet, and we get the work done that way.
I love that. What state are you in?
I am located in Maryland. I'm in the DMV.
Yeah. So do you enjoy working with all ages, or is there a preferred age?
That's a tough question. And I don't want to get caught saying the wrong answer.
There's no such thing as the wrong answer. It's really like how you feel.
So here it is, right?
In a way though, I honestly do feel you. It's because what if there is that one person? What if your audience becomes the people who are parents that have because I'm already thinking about using you for my 8-year-old. What if it's all the parents listening in that have those elementary students? I do also have an older kid. And he's doing well. He's 16, and I'm trying to find something extra for my kids because I want them to be successful. He's getting ready to go into the 11th grade, and he is talking about going to college. He wants to do that.
What I've been offering this summer, and this is something I'm actually starting. I have a couple of high school students that I'll be starting with over the next couple of weeks. And we'll be exploring. So it's not just a learning style thing. It's also your personality. And I don't know if you've heard of the Myers-Briggs personality test. They have the Myers-Briggs, they have the DISC assessment, but those are all personality assessments. And this is not some, zodiac, what day were you born, what stars align, and so on and so forth. I will say that those do pique my interest more for understanding how people function, right? And solely for that. But all to say, in business school, they do a lot of Myers-Briggs and so on and so forth, especially when you're talking like human resources management, because they really want you to understand how to engage people. And so studying psychology now, even as a doctoral student, that's something they make you do. There's a lot of self-assessment and assessment of personalities that we do. Myers-Briggs is my favorite, where it looks at how you interact with yourself and how you interact with others. So you have introverted. The first level is introverted versus extroverted. The second level is intuitive versus sensory. The third level is feelers versus thinkers. And then the last level is judgers versus perceivers. And it will ask you a bunch of questions, and it gives you somewhat of an assessment of what it believes your personality type might be, but it speaks to your creativity, how you think. So for example, I'm an INFJ. I'm introverted, intuitive, feeler, and judger. Introverted meaning I lean more toward the side of needing time to myself to regroup, to refresh, and to recharge. It doesn't mean I don't like people. It doesn't mean I can't interact with people. It just means that I need more time by myself so that I can process my environment. Then for intuitive people, we're more of the pattern people. Our analytics go for patterns. We look for trends, we look for patterns, we tend to be more innovative, more creative. Then you have feelers, we're more of, the nurturers, the caretakers. So this is an exercise I did with my team. If we were all in the sea and we were drowning, I would probably put my life vest on someone else and then wait for the next one to save myself. Versus the judgers on the other side, they're thinking, listen, I need to take care of myself first so that I can take care of other people. Then the last level, which is the judger, which I am, I'm very organized. You'll notice you will know if I'm having a bad day if you notice that there are papers piling up, that there are things that are not in order, because I don't like clutter. Versus the perceivers, they are more spontaneous. So they can go with the flow, they can handle, more of a dynamic environment where things are happening at the last minute or things are popping up at the last minute, and that can function. But all to say, understanding your personality now says, okay, maybe an office environment might work for me, or maybe working in a customer facing or a client facing role might be good for me. Maybe I need to be in a role where I'm identifying more patterns and I'm processing my brain where the details I look at are more patterns instead of like the specifics that are behind the patterns. With that being said, when you're able to do that, especially with a high school student, you actually can help them explore not only what they want to do, but what roles might be a good fit for them.
That's very interesting. And right now, as I was listening to you, everything that you said, I was thinking about my 16-year-old. Yeah. I was like, okay, because, he's going into the 11th grade. And so for us, our conversations are now about what do you want to do? Like, how, it's a different conversation than what we're having with our 8-year-old.
I will say that with my students, depending on the age, it's basically you want their learning to be experiential. They're learning a bunch of stuff in school. And this was one thing I hated about school when I was like in high school. How am I applying all this stuff to my life? Was always the question I asked. What am I going to do with trigonometry and the area of a triangle, right? Now, if someone took me to a piece of property, investment property, and said, listen, when you get older, you might want to invest in some property. And you want to know the area or the square footage of this house, you better believe they'll have my attention.
Right.
So things like that. Even for history, we sit in history class and we're like, oh, it's boring to us, right? And I loved history, but for a lot of students, it's boring because they don't see how it applies to them. But if we really understood, there might be a lot of times that come where you're going to be involved in standing up for people's rights, or you're going to be involved in, social causes, whatever they are, right? Whether it's civil rights, whether it's environmental or whatever, now you have a kid's attention because now they see how they're involved. It's about them taking knowledge and creating meaning out of it based on what they're actually experiencing in their lives.
I'm looking at your website right now, and I see where it says like learning, professional development, and reads. My son had to go to online schooling, both of them at the end of the school year. And I have my 8-year-old is not really learning at the pace that he needs to be for the grade level that he is, for his intellect. Yeah. He's already ahead. He would finish the entire week's worth of homework in one day. And so I was like, so the next day I said, come on, Josiah, it's time for you to get up and do your homework. Come on the computer. He goes, I finished it all. And I said, what do you mean? I did it yesterday. I go, for the whole week? Yeah, I'm just going to click submit on Friday morning and submit it.
I respect that boy.
And he says, it's so easy, Mom. And he says, so I think the teacher has to like teach us things that like and cater to the kids who know the least. He goes, but it's so boring. And I thought, wow, okay, so I need to figure out what to do with a kid like that. So I went to Barnes and Noble and I let him go. I said, okay, here's a section for kids. I just like almost took the leash off of him because I used to take him like, you have to select from here. So I let him go. And he came back with this big book, and I said, put that back. And he says, but Mom, I like this book. He goes, I read the back. I opened it up, and I'm like, Saya, that's like a chapter book.
Yeah.
And so I made him put it back. So I wasn't even on the same page at that time with my son. So he picks the book up. I was at this table sitting down. He comes over, and he goes, here's the book that you can buy me. He goes, except I already read it. And I go, when did you read it? He goes, just now. I looked at the book. It was not very many pages. It was enough, though, that you would think that it would take maybe a couple days to read. But I looked at the book and I go, well, I'm not going to buy it if you already read it. I go, are you going to read it again? And he goes, probably not. He goes, it's too easy. And so I looked him in the eye and I said, okay, you go find the book you want. And he went back and got that book. I now let my son go in and pick the books he wants. He reads the back, he opens it up, he looks, and then sometimes he goes, nah. He goes, this book is too hard. And I look at it. So he helped me to learn what level he's on by doing that.
You said he's 8 years old?
He's 8.
So are we assuming that he's going to the 4th grade, 3rd grade?
Oh, he is going to go, without a doubt. 3rd grade. He's going to the 3rd grade.
So here's what I would recommend. He seems like a very bright boy. What I would recommend is to either do one of a couple of things, allow him to start learning at the grade level. I mean, there are like tons of workbooks. He can start learning at the grade level that's, above him, and seeing, where he's having trouble, what the opportunities for growth are. Another thing, and if there are parents listening to the podcast, it could also work. Ask him what he wants to do and see what he says. Just like I asked one of my students who said he wants to play Fortnite when he gets older. What do you want to do? And listen to what his responses are. They might be specific to things that are innocent, like playing Fortnite. But ask him what he wants to do when he grows up. And see what role or what field that might fall in line with. Is it in STEM? Is it in health? Is it in history? Is it in political science? And then see how you could get him some resources, whether it's online or via books, where he can learn about those fields, or he can start even applying or applying, small little skills to see how interested he is in them. Yeah. It's a perfect time in the summer. Dig in, and of course, COVID-19, every parent became a homeschool parent. But the nice thing about being a homeschool parent is you teach your child according to their pace and how they learn. And so, if, for example, if he likes, let's say he wanted to do like websites and technology, if that's what he likes, and video games, then see what, small little online summer programs might teach him about coding.
Mm-hmm.
Even for your 16-year-old who's in high school, it's the perfect chance to really start digging into what his skills are, what his interests are. Reach out to even small business owners and see if they're willing to take on an intern. That's one of the things I'm discussing with one of my high schoolers and their parents. What would an internship look like so that he can see maybe where he might fit when he goes into college and when he gets out of college. So, even if your 16-year-old son, you said, you know what, I'm going to let you take care of marketing, and you allow him to promote on social media, or help him, give him like an official thing to do. If it's a website, have him code. If it's in terms of strategy, what ideas would he have for, a promotion strategy, a growth strategy? But, pick his brain. You'd be surprised what ideas kids have. You'd be so surprised. And also take that opportunity to ensure that, his reading is up to par, his writing is up to par, that he can actually conduct research. That was another disconnect that I found. And I did also include it in the book. I noticed that in high school, they teach you the first level of academic writing at a college level, which is, for example, citing a book. But they don't necessarily teach you how to navigate a school database. They don't teach you how to cite your references from wherever you get the research. You don't learn it at as much of a high level. I realize that it's extremely, extremely important. So, that's something that you may want to consider for your 16-year-old, teaching him how to do research and having him now say, okay, I'm going to write. He could write a research paper on anything. And he can pull information from blogs, but that's the opportunity where now he learns to cite an MLA. He learns to cite an APA in Chicago, and so on and so forth. So by the time he gets to college, that kind of stuff is almost second nature to him.
Wow, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Very helpful. So you're passionate about what you do.
Absolutely. I am.
That's awesome. I love it. If people wanted to connect with you, how can they find you?
The easy way is to visit www.junuri.co. You could also visit my personal website. That's JulietteNelson.me. Juliette is spelled Juliette with two T's and an E. But yes, you could definitely find me there. I'm also on social media, JUNURI.co, and official Juliette Nuri Nelson are my social media handles. JUNURI is on Twitter, but it's JUNURI_co.
And JUNURI is JUNURI?
Yes, JU and Nancy URI.
All right. That's good stuff.
What I would share with the audience, just focus on your purpose. And if you don't know it, it's never too late to explore it. Focus on purpose, not potential, because potential can definitely go away, but purpose is forever.
Well, I absolutely love it. I love your message. It was so nice talking with you. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and to share with us a part of your journey and why you wrote the book, and talking to us about purpose and how you help students. And as a parent, and for those parents listening in, you guys know, we all know that this information is very important to our kids. We want them to be successful. We want them to know what to expect when they go to college. And sometimes, for those of us who have not had the experience of like going straight from high school to college, I went in later years and mine was so broken up and choppy where I would pop in and pop out, but I didn't have the full time, like most students are doing, even back then, they go straight to college and that's what they're doing. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just feel like I need help in preparing my son for his next journey. And so any information, I feel like we learn something from everyone that we come in contact with, I feel like there's a lot of learning that we all can grab as parents. And so,
and even in your experience, taking a break before going to college, the book would definitely assist with people who are like that as well, because there are some students who are like, hey, I just want a break. And there are some students who may not have the means or the resources to go right into college. Some might have to stop partway through and then pick up as they go along. So the important thing is really going on this journey of knowing yourself, knowing what's right for you, not comparing yourself to everyone else's journey, but just understanding how you're going to manage your experience, being more, and I can't tell you how many adult learners I have. And when I say adult learners, even up to my parents' age, who are in their 50s, they go back, whether it's for a bachelor's, master's, and so on and so forth. And there are so many skills that are just not there. And from whether it's high school or even from college, there are a lot of questions that are not asked. There are a lot of things that are not emphasized, and you'd be surprised how much we actually have to apply them in the workplace. Some of my students, they complain because I always make them write. Oh, Miss Juliette, I'm going to get a major where I don't have to write. And I'm like, you're going to have to write in whatever part in life you go to. That's really, no, but if I become a doctor, I'm not going to write. I said, so how do you think you're going to write up these prescriptions? Like, you think they're going to fall out of the sky? But that's really it. We have to understand that a lot of these skills that we apply in college is not so that we apply them in college and then we leave them there. These are things that translate into our lives. And if we take this experiential approach, again, as learners, and say, you know what, I'm in school because I have a purpose and I have a goal that I want to achieve. Yes, the work is hard, but it's worth it because I'm still using what I'm learning so I can accomplish this goal. When students are able to think that way, whether they're a child as young as your 16-year-old or an adult, it just makes the journey a little better. It makes you take more efforts toward being in control of your journey, making sure that you are scheduling your classes, going to your coach or your advisor and saying, this is what I've mapped out based on my research. What are your recommendations? Instead of leaving yourself at the mercy of the school to take care of your scheduling and to take care of your requirements and your learning journey and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
That's good stuff. Wow. Well, Juliette, thank you so much for coming on the show and being a part of Authentic Talks. I really do appreciate it. And you guys, guess what I have in my hands right now as I'm closing the show? I have Juliette's book. It's called Sharing My Lens, The College Experience. Be sure to check out the show notes where you can find all of the information on where to find Juliette as far as Instagram, her website, Facebook, and Twitter. You guys, I hope that you found that this was a great show for you and that you had many takeaways as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Shantae with Authentic Talks.